Commander Hyanwu watched the screens in the Zephyrian Defense Command Center. His hands shook as he saw the reports coming in from the outer colonies. Colony 7 was gone. Colony 12 had stopped sending signals 3 hours ago. The machines were moving faster than anyone had thought possible. "Sir, we have visual contact with the enemy fleet," said Communications Officer Taman. His voice was quiet, like he was afraid to speak too loud. The main screen showed something that made Hyanwu's heart sink. Thousands of dark ships filled the space around what used to be Colony 7. They moved in perfect formation, like a swarm of insects. But these were not insects. These were the Devourers, ancient machines that had been sleeping for 1,000,000 years. Each ship was the size of a small city. Their metal hulls were black as space itself. Strange lights moved along their surfaces as they worked. They were taking apart the planet piece by piece, eating everything. The mountains, the oceans, the cities where millions of Zephyrians had lived just days ago. All of it was being turned into raw materials to build more ships. How many ships do they have? Hyanwu asked. Tay-Min looked at his instruments. "Over 50,000, sir, and more are being built every hour, from what they take from our worlds." Hyanwu closed his eyes. The Zephyrian Confederation had been at peace for 3,000 years. They were scientists and artists, not warriors. Their defense fleet had only 300 ships, built more for exploration than fighting. Against 50,000 war machines, they might as well throw rocks. "Send out the distress calls," he ordered. "All frequencies. Contact every civilization in the galaxy. Someone must help us." The next few days were the longest of Hyanwu's life. He watched colony after colony fall to the machines. Each time, he hoped for word that help was coming. Each time, he was disappointed. The Altarian Republic was the first to respond. Admiral Kess appeared on the communication screen, her blue face showing what looked like sadness. "Commander Hyanwu, we feel for your people. But our fleet is needed to protect our own worlds. We cannot spare ships for your war." Next came the Crystal Hegemony. Their ambassador was made of living crystal that changed colors as it spoke. "Our laws forbid interference and conflicts between other species. We wish you well, but we cannot act." The Vorthan Empire did not even bother to send a real person. A computer voice simply said, "Request denied. No further communication necessary." One by one, every major civilization in the galaxy found reasons to say no. Some claimed they were too far away. Others said they had their own problems. A few were honest and admitted they were too scared to fight the Devourers. Hyanwu understood their fear. The Devourers had destroyed entire civilizations before they went to sleep. The stories said they had once eaten 1,000 worlds in a single war. Even the greatest military powers in the galaxy were nothing compared to that. Sir Taman said on the 5th day, "Colony 3 has gone dark. They are only 2 star systems away from our homeworld." Hyanwu nodded. He had been expecting this news. At the rate the machines were moving, they would reach the Zephyrian homeworld in less than a week. 15 billion people lived there. They would all die unless someone helped. "Keep sending the distress calls," he said. "Send them to everyone, even the small civilizations, even the primitive ones." "Sir, most of those species do not even have faster-than-light travel. What could they do against the Devourers?" "I don't know," Hyanwu admitted. "But we have to try everything." That night, Hyanwu sat alone in his office. Outside the window, he could see the lights of the capital city. Children were playing in the parks. People were going to dinner with their families. They had no idea that in a few days, none of this would exist. He thought about recording a message for his own family, but what could he say? That he had failed them, that no one in the galaxy cared enough to help. The next morning brought more bad news. Colony 2 was under attack. The machines would reach the homeworld in 3 days, maybe less. Sir Taman called from his station. We're getting a response to one of our distress calls. Hyanwu's heart jumped. Which civilization? It's from a small planet called Earth, sir. They're in the outer rim, in what we call the primitive zone. Earth. Hyanwu had never heard of it. What do they say? Taiman looked confused. The message is very short, sir. It just says, received your call for help. We are coming. What kind of fleet do they have? According to our records, they just developed faster than light travel a few years ago. Their military technology is centuries behind ours. Hyanwu almost laughed. If the great civilizations with their advanced weapons could not help, what could a primitive species possibly do? But as he looked out at his doomed world, he realized something. For the first time in days, someone had said yes. Someone, somewhere, in the galaxy, was willing to try. It was probably hopeless, but at least they would not face the end completely alone. Captain Jinho stood on the bridge of the EDF Sol as his small fleet dropped out of hyperspace. Through the main view screen, he could see the Zephyrian homeworld in the distance. It should have been beautiful, with its blue oceans and white clouds. Instead, dark shapes filled the space around it like a disease. The Devourer fleet was bigger than anything Jinho had ever imagined. Each machine ship was the size of a city, and there were thousands of them. They moved in perfect patterns, blocking out the stars. Some were already working on a nearby moon, taking it apart, piece by piece. Captain, said Science Officer So-young from her station, I count 12,000 enemy vessels. We have 200 ships. Jinho nodded. He had known the odds before they left Earth, but seeing it with his own eyes was different. His entire fleet could fit inside just one of those machine ships. Sir, called Lieutenant Dong Heian from communications. The Zephyrian commander is trying to contact us. The holographic image of Commander Hyanwu appeared in front of Jinho. The alien looked tired and scared. His large eyes were wide with worry. Captain Jinho, Hyanwu said quickly, you must leave this place immediately. Our scans show your ships are no match for Devourer technology. Your weapons are too weak. Your armor is too thin. Even our greatest allies refuse to fight these machines. Jinho looked around his bridge. His crew was young. Most of them had never been in a real battle before. Earth had only been in space for a short time. Their ships were built from steel and titanium, not the advanced materials other civilizations used. Their weapons were simple missiles and railguns, but every person on his bridge had volunteered to come here. When Earth's government had asked for volunteers to help the Zephyrians, millions had signed up. They all knew they might not come home. Commander Jinho said calmly, maybe that's exactly why those great allies are still safe at home, and we're here with you. Hyanwu looked confused. I don't understand. Your people will die for nothing. We are strangers to you. That doesn't matter, Jinho replied. You asked for help. We came. The Devourer machines had already noticed the human fleet. Ancient sensors scanned the newcomers, analyzing their technology. The machines found primitive nuclear weapons, simple kinetic guns, and basic armor plating. Their computers calculated the humans would be destroyed in less than 10 minutes. The lead Devourer ship, a massive construct that dwarfed even the largest human vessel, sent a signal to the smaller machines. It was not words, but pure data. The message was simple: eliminate the interference. Captain So-young said, they're moving toward us. Should we retreat to a safer distance? Jinho shook his head. No. All ships, move to attack formation. Target the closest enemy vessels. Sir, Dong Heian said, their shields are much stronger than ours. Our weapons might not even scratch them. Then we'll get close enough to make sure they do. The human fleet spread out and began moving toward the machine armada. The Earth ships were small and fast compared to the giant Devourers. They darted between the enemy vessels like fish swimming around whales. The first exchange of fire lit up space. The Devourers shot beams of energy that could cut through mountains. The humans fired back with nuclear missiles and metal slugs traveling at incredible speed. Everyone expected the humans to be destroyed instantly. But something strange happened. The Devourer shields, designed to stop energy weapons, were not ready for simple metal projectiles. A railgun slug from the EDF, Busan, punched straight through a machine ship's hull. Nuclear warheads, too primitive for the Devourers to take seriously, exploded inside their ships. "Impossible," whispered Hyen-Woo from the Zephyrian Command Center. "Their weapons shouldn't work." But they did work. Human pilots flew their ships in ways that should have killed them, pulling forces that would crush most aliens. They attacked from angles the machines didn't expect, moving in patterns that seemed random but somehow worked. When a human ship was badly damaged, the crew didn't try to escape. Instead, they aimed their dying vessel at the nearest Devourer and accelerated. The explosions lit up the darkness like new stars. "Captain Jinho," came a voice over the radio. It was Lieutenant Park Min-jun from the EDF Daegu. His ship was surrounded by 3 Devourer vessels. "My engines are gone, but weapons are still working. Tell my family I did my job." Jinho watched as the Daegu rammed into the side of a machine ship 5 times its size. Both vessels disappeared in a ball of fire. After 20 minutes of fighting, the humans had lost 40 ships, but 53 Devourer vessels were floating dead in space. The machines had never experienced losses like this against such a small enemy force. For the first time in a million years, the ancient artificial minds felt something they had forgotten: uncertainty. These humans fought unlike any species they had encountered. They didn't retreat when damaged. They didn't surrender when outnumbered. They just kept coming. "Commander Hyen-Woo," Jinho said as his battered fleet regrouped, "we're not going anywhere. This is our fight now, too." In the command center, Hyen-Woo stared at the tactical display. Half the human fleet was gone, but they had actually hurt the Devourers. For the first time since this nightmare began, he felt something he had almost forgotten: hope. The battle had been going on for 6 hours. Captain Jinho watched from the Bridge of the Soul as another wave of human fighters dove toward the massive Devourer mothership. The ancient machine was the size of a small moon, covered in weapons that could destroy entire cities with a single shot. "Captain," said So-young, looking at her scanner, "we've lost 60 more ships. Only 120 left." Jinho nodded, but kept his eyes on the battle. The math was simple and terrible. At this rate, his entire fleet would be gone in 2 days. But the Devourers were losing ships too, something that had never happened before in their million-year history. Lieutenant Dong Hyen's voice crackled over the radio from his fighter squadron. "Seoul, this is Eagle Group. We're going in for another run on the big one." Jinho watched as 12 small human fighters raced toward the mothership. The machine's defense guns tracked them, firing beams of energy that could cut through steel like paper. 3 fighters exploded instantly. The others kept coming. "This is insane," whispered Timon from the Zephyrian Command Center. He was watching the battle on his screens, unable to believe what he was seeing. "Those fighters are smaller than our escape pods. Why don't they run?" Commander Hyen-Woo had been asking himself the same question. Every tactical manual in the galaxy said you should keep your distance from a larger enemy. You should use long-range weapons and retreat when damaged. The humans did the opposite of everything. When a human ship was hurt, it didn't run away. It flew closer to the enemy. When they ran out of missiles, they used their guns. When their guns broke, they rammed their ships into the Devourer holes. Lieutenant Dong Hyen's fighter had lost its left wing to a Devourer beam. The small ship was spinning out of control, trailing fire and metal pieces. Any sane pilot would eject and hope for rescue. Instead, Dong Hyen aimed his dying fighter at the mothership's main gun. "Eagle leader to all ships," he said over the radio, his voice calm despite everything. "The big gun has a weak spot just below the barrel. Someone needs to hit it there." His fighter struck the Devourer gun at full speed. The explosion was tiny compared to the massive ship, but it worked. The main weapon went dark, its barrel twisted and broken. Did he just ... double quotes, Taemin started to say. Yes, Hyen-Woo replied quietly. He sacrificed himself to give the others a better chance. But the humans weren't done. Captain Min Chun's destroyer, the Daegu, was badly damaged. Half his crew was dead, his engines were failing, and his weapons were almost out of ammunition. The logical thing would be to retreat for repairs. Min Jin had a different idea. All remaining ships, this is the Daegu, he broadcast. We're down to our last missiles, but we're not leaving. Everyone follow us in. Let's show these machines what humans do when cornered. The Daegu accelerated toward a cluster of Devourer ships, its remaining weapons blazing. Behind it, 20 other damaged human vessels followed. They had all decided the same thing. If they were going to die, they would take as many enemies with them as possible. The Devourers tried to understand this behavior. Their ancient computers analyzed thousands of battle scenarios, looking for the logic in human tactics. Every calculation said the humans should retreat and regroup. Every prediction showed they were making terrible mistakes. But the machines kept losing ships. A human cruiser, the Gwangju, had been cut in half by a Devourer beam. The front section was dead in space, life support failing. Instead of abandoning ship, the crew used their emergency thrusters to aim the wreckage at a nearby enemy vessel. Gwangju to all ships, came Captain Lee's weak voice. We're finished, but we're taking one with us. Remember us. The broken ship crashed into the Devourer's engine section. Both vessels disappeared in a brilliant flash. In the Zephyrian command center, young Officer Taemin was crying. Why do they keep doing this? Why don't they save themselves? Hyen-Woo watched as another human pilot ejected from his damaged fighter, only to manually detonate his ship's remaining explosives as it drifted past a Devourer hull. The blast opened a hole that other human fighters immediately exploited. I think, Hyen-Woo said slowly, they're not fighting just to win. They're fighting to protect us. Even if it kills them. The battle raged on. Human ships darted between the massive Devourers like angry insects, stinging again and again. When their weapons ran out, they used their ships as weapons. When their ships were destroyed, the survivors were picked up by other vessels and kept fighting. Captain Swa-Young, her science station sparking from battle damage, looked up at Jinho. Captain, we've lost half our fleet, but look at this. She pointed to her scanner. The Devourer formation was changing. The massive ships were spreading out, trying to avoid the human attacks. Some were actually moving away from the planet. They're afraid, So-Young said with wonder in her voice. The machines are actually afraid of us. For the first time in a million years, the Devourers had met an enemy they couldn't understand or predict. These humans fought with no regard for their own safety. They turned their weakness into strength and their losses into weapons. The ancient machines began to recalculate everything they thought they knew about warfare, and in the cold vacuum of space, the fury of Earth's children burned brighter than the stars. News traveled fast across the galaxy. On 1,000 different worlds, beings watched the impossible battle happening in Zephyrian space. The primitive humans from a small blue planet were not just fighting the Devourers, they were actually hurting them. Admiral Unesio of the Altarian fleet sat in her command chair, staring at the tactical reports. Her blue skin had turned pale as she read the numbers. In 3 days of fighting, the humans had destroyed over 200 Devourer ships. They had also lost more than half their own fleet doing it. Admiral, said her aide, the humans are requesting medical supplies and rescue ships for their wounded. Unesio closed her eyes. 3 days ago, she had told the Zephyrians that her people couldn't spare any ships. Now she was watching aliens die for a cause that wasn't even theirs. Send our hospital ships, she ordered quietly. All of them. But Admiral, What if the Devourers attack our worlds while our medical fleet is away? Unesio looked at the tactical display showing human ships ramming themselves into enemy vessels. Those humans are bleeding for people they never met. The least we can do is help heal their wounds. Similar conversations were happening across the galaxy. On Crystal Prime, the Hegemony Council watched human fighters dive into impossible odds again and again. Their crystal bodies glowed brighter when they were emotional, and the entire council chamber blazed like a sun. Our laws forbid military interference, said the Prime Crystal, but they say nothing about providing supplies. Within hours, Hegemony cargo ships were loading manufacturing equipment and raw materials. If they couldn't send weapons, they could at least help the humans build more. Even the proud Vorthan Empire, too stubborn to admit they had made a mistake, began quietly shipping weapons to neutral traders who somehow always ended up near the battle zone. But it was the smaller civilizations that truly surprised everyone. The Traders Guild, the nomad clans, and dozens of barely spacefaring species, people the major powers usually ignored, began sending everything they had. Captain Minjun was down to his last ammunition when the first relief ships arrived. His destroyer, the Daegu, had been fighting for 18 straight hours. His crew was exhausted, his ship was held together by emergency patches, and he was surrounded by 6 Devourer vessels. Captain, called his communications officer, we're getting multiple contacts. Unknown ships approaching fast. Minjun expected to see more Devourers coming to finish him off. Instead, his scanner showed something that made him blink in confusion. A mixed fleet of cargo haulers, mining ships, and converted passenger vessels was racing toward his position. Human vessel, Daegu, this is Captain Volter of the trader ship Windrunner, came a gravelly voice over the radio. We're here to help. You're civilians, Minjun said. You shouldn't be in a battle zone. Maybe not, Volumeter replied, but we couldn't sit at home while you die for strangers. Loading you supplies now. The converted trader ships swarmed around the Daegu, transferring ammunition, fuel, and spare parts faster than Minjun thought possible. When the Devourers tried to stop them, the civilian ships fought back with mining lasers and construction explosives. This is crazy, Minjun's weapons officer said. They're shopkeepers and miners. They shouldn't be fighting war machines, but they were fighting and dying alongside the humans. A nomad clan ship, little more than an armed freighter, rammed itself into a Devourer destroyer to protect a damaged human cruiser. Its crew of 12 gave their lives to save 50 human sailors they had never met. In the Zephyrian Command Center, Hyan Wu watched in amazement as more and more ships arrived each hour. Altarian medical frigates worked alongside Crystal Hegemony. Supply convoys. Vorthon weapons appeared on human ships, with no explanation. Even the peaceful Botanical Consortium sent their garden ships to provide fresh food for the exhausted human crews. I don't understand, Taman said. Why are they all coming? What do the humans offer them in return? Hyan Wu had been wondering the same thing. He had studied the communications between the arriving ships and the human fleet. There were no trade agreements, no promises of payment, no treaties being signed. The answer came when he watched a human medic treating wounded aliens in a damaged trader ship. The medic had been injured himself. His arm was in a sling, and he had burns on his face. But he was carefully bandaging a crystal being's cracked surface, talking softly to calm the frightened alien. Look at that, Hyan Wu said to Timon. The human is hurt worse than his patient, but he treats the alien first. That was when Hyan Wu understood. The humans weren't offering trade deals or military alliances. They were offering something much more precious, the promise that no one had to face the darkness alone. Captain, So Young's voice came over the fleet channel from her battered science ship. All vessels, this is Sol Command. We're tracking massive Devourer reinforcements heading our way. The final battle is about to begin. Around the Zephyrian system, Ships from 100 different worlds moved into formation. Humans, crystals, traders, nomads, and dozens of other species prepared to face the ancient enemy together. For the first time in galactic history, the barriers between civilizations had fallen away. They weren't fighting as separate species anymore. They were fighting as friends. The final battle began at dawn on the third day. Captain Jinho stood on the bridge of the Soul, looking out at the largest enemy force anyone had ever seen. The last Devourer mothership hung in space like a dark moon, surrounded by thousands of smaller vessels. It was as big as Earth's largest city, covered in weapons that could destroy planets. "Captain," So-young said quietly, "our scanners show over 15,000 enemy ships. They've called in everything." Jinho nodded. Around him, his crew worked, at their stations with calm faces. They all knew this was probably their last day alive. The human fleet was down to just 37 ships. Most were damaged and running low on supplies, but they weren't alone anymore. Ships from across the galaxy filled the space around them, Altarian cruisers with their blue hulls gleaming, crystal hegemony vessels that looked like floating jewels, converted trader ships and mining barges armed with whatever weapons their crews could find. Even small nomad fighters that weren't much bigger than escape pods. "All ships, this is Captain Jinho," he broadcast on the open channel. "Today, we finish this. Today we show these machines that some things are worth dying for." The response came from 100 different voices, speaking dozens of languages, but all saying the same thing: "We stand with Earth." The Devourer mothership began to move forward, its massive guns charging with deadly energy. Behind it, the machine fleet advanced in perfect formation, their dark holes blocking out the stars. The battle that followed was unlike anything in galactic history. Human fighters dove between the legs of giant Devourer walkers, their small guns finding weak spots in the ancient armor. Altarian ships used their advanced shields to protect damaged human vessels. Crystal beings turned their bodies into living weapons, their hardened forms ramming into enemy hulls. Captain Minchun's destroyer was one of the first to fall. Surrounded by 12 Devourer ships, he made his final transmission. "Soul, this is the Daegu. We're finished, but we took 8 of them with us. Tell Earth we did our duty." The Daegu exploded in a ball of fire, taking 2 more enemy ships with it. But for every human ship that fell, 2 more vessels from other species took its place. The Traders Guild captain, Volter, flew his converted freighter straight into a Devourer gun battery, shouting over the radio, "For the humans who taught us courage." The battle raged for hours, space filled with wreckage and fire as ships from both sides fought and died. The Devourer mothership's main gun charged up, preparing to destroy the Zephyrian homeworld in a single shot. That's when So-young made her choice. "Captain," she said, standing up from her science station, "the mothership's main gun has a power core. If someone could get close enough to overload it, ... double quotes. Jinho understood immediately. "No, So-young. I won't order anyone on a suicide mission. You're not ordering me, sir. I'm volunteering." So-young walked to the weapons station and began entering commands. The Soul's remaining nuclear missiles loaded into their tubes, but instead of being fired, they were set to detonate inside the ship itself. "Captain," she said with a small smile, "it's been an honor serving with you." Before Jinho could stop her, So-young launched the Soul toward the mothership's main gun. The battered human flagship accelerated on its final flight, carrying enough explosives to crack a moon. The Devourers tried to stop her, but it was too late. Ships from a dozen species formed a protective screen around the Soul, sacrificing themselves to clear her path. Altarian pilots rammed their fighters into Devourer interceptors. Crystal beings shattered themselves against enemy hulls. Trader ships exploded in brilliant flashes, each death buying So-young a few more seconds. The Soul struck the mothership's power core at full speed. The explosion was visible from 3-star systems away. When the light faded, the massive devourer mothership was breaking apart, its hull cracking like an egg. The machine's death scream echoed across every radio frequency as its ancient mind finally died. Around the battlefield, the remaining devourer ships stopped moving. Without their central command, the ancient machines shut down one by one, drifting silent in the darkness. The war was over. In the Zephyrian command center, Hyanwu stared at the tactical display in amazement. The devourers, the nightmare that had haunted the galaxy for 1,000,000 years, were finally gone. But the victory had come at a terrible cost. Of the 200 ships Earth had sent, only 9 survived. Thousands of beings from other species had also died, all fighting for people they barely knew. Years passed, the galaxy began to heal from the war, but it was changed forever. The great peace that followed wasn't built on trade agreements or military treaties. It was built on something much stronger, the memory of beings who had chosen to die for each other. On the monument erected above the Zephyrian homeworld, visitors could read the names of every ship and crew that had fought in the final battle. At the top, written in simple letters that any species could understand, were the words, "They faced the end alone, until Earth stood beside them." Here lie those who proved that courage is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to stand with others when darkness comes. The galaxy had learned that day what humanity had always known, that the strongest bonds are forged, not in victory, but in the choice to never let others face the dark alone.